Hello and welcome to Brian Reeby Drives Electric, and today we're not doing any cold weather testing because it's about 40 degrees Fahrenheit out here today, and that's just fantastic. But I want to talk about some misconceptions and some misunderstandings about FSD, the program, why anyone would want to use it. And to do that, let's get in the car. We've got it all charged up. Lately there's been a lot of questions about FSD and is it worth it? Is it safe? What's the rolling stop situation? And is it improving? And why are people volunteering to work on this system and actually paying to train this system? And are you even training at all? So I wanted to cover that stuff quickly here while we do a little beta drive and give you my thoughts on all those. Now I am still on FSD Beta 10.8. Kind of slow, but it found its way on a really odd corner there. And it's about to do something that annoys me more out of the map system than anything else. And that is get on the highway to take the next exit. Because technically that's the fastest way, where most people would just drive through town a little bit. And a lot of that stuff is route planning, map pathing kind of things that are kind of preferences. Some people might be more likely to do that kind of on and off the highway kind of thing. To me, it's putting yourself in a position to be with a lot of faster moving vehicles when you don't need to. So overall, safety-wise, I'd take city streets. So that's a good instance of making choices that I wouldn't make. And if it's doing that, if it can be stressful sometimes, why use it? The big answer there is I don't always use it. If I'm not in the mood, if I'm in a hurry, or just feel like driving, I don't engage beta and just drive myself. After doing a lot of winter driving, now that the roads are pretty clear, it's kind of more fun to drive than be driven around. Especially when you have to pay extra attention to what it thinks it wants to do. And there's a good example of that, where it wanted to change lanes, and it did so, it was fine, but in the traffic situation I'm in, it was kind of a jerk move. And there's some jerk that should be programmed in and some jerk that should be programmed out. So finding that right level of aggressive driver is going to be one of the things that needs fine-tuning. A lot of my disengagements are courtesy disengagements, or they are accelerator presses. It knows what it wants to do, it just isn't committed to doing it fast enough. But I am still on 8.1, so we'll see once I move up into the 10 range how that behaves. But my reason for doing this is essentially the safety factor. People are concerned that this is not a safe system, and yes, if you left it alone and didn't watch it, it wouldn't make safe choices all the time. But the assumption a lot of people make when they criticize it is that humans always make good decisions and there aren't any accidents or deaths or anything happening now, which of course is untrue. And a lot of times I will disengage or take manual control because I want it to drive a different way, or I'm not seeing something it's seeing. And the other day was a perfect example of this, where I had somebody kind of tailgating me and I thought I should move over, let them go by. And the car wasn't doing it, and I was getting a little annoyed, took it out into manual control, changed lanes, and then I realized that in my blind spot, coming down an entrance ramp, was a car that needed to merge. They had to swerve and move around me and gave me a very dirty look, very well-earned dirty look, for being such a moron on the road. But like I was saying, the human in that case, me, made a bad decision that FSD Beta wasn't going to. And there have been other instances where I've taken it out or hit the accelerator because I didn't know why I was slowing down, and then I noticed a person was waiting for me or was trying to see if I was going to go or it was going to go. And Beta would have stopped for it, and I didn't. And so there have been enough cases like that that make me pretty convinced that, for me at least, using Beta makes me a safer driver. especially once I'm used to it. I know a lot of people, someone I responded to on Twitter was saying they tried it for a while, but it was so frustrating and so stressful that they stopped using it. And for the first week, it was for me as well. But again, you can always turn it off. And to that, some people might say, well, why would I pay for something that I'm going to turn off if I get frustrated? And that's really a personal choice. But a lot of times, especially in the suburbs, I'll find myself in stop and go traffic or long stretches of driving on, kind of side roads that just go on for miles and miles. And FSD does a really good job of that. And you still have to pay attention and everything, but and sometimes help it through intersections. But when it does well, it's just like autopilot or cruise control, adaptive cruise on the interstate. Now, would I like it to be better? Yeah. And I hope it continues to improve. But driving with it and being responsible gives you a good sense of the things it does pretty well and the things it's going to need help on, and when you need to be extra vigilant, or when to just shut it off completely. I feel like that's the way it is with any system. I'm old enough to remember when, moderately priced cars started getting cruise control. And it was really cool, but as someone, from a small town who hadn't used it really before, didn't do a lot of highway driving, there were times when it was stressful, or why did it do that? Or in those days, it wasn't adaptive cruise control. You had to always, disengage if it needed to slow down. And you learned what that system did well. You used it when it was appropriate and didn't when it wasn't. That's kind of where I am with this system. Now, another question that came up that unfortunately I couldn't find on Twitter, it was a response to a FSD post a couple months ago. But the response to one of my tweets was that I don't know why all these Tesla fanboys, all these Tesla longs are saying they're training the system. They're not training the system. Elon even said at AI Day that the beta, or that people weren't training the system.
Before we introduce something into the fleet, we will run it in shadow mode, and we'll see what would this neural net, for example, have done in this particular situation. And then effectively the drivers are training the net. So if the neural net would have controlled and say veered right, but the person actually went left, and it's like, oh, there was a difference. Why was there that difference? All the human drivers are essentially training the neural net as to what is the correct course of action. Yeah, just to emphasize that overwhelmingly the data set is the real video from the cars on the actual roads. Nothing's weirder or has more corner cases than reality. It gets really strange out there. But then if we find, say, a few examples of something very odd, and there's some very odd pictures we've seen, then in order to train it effectively, we want to create simulations, say 1,000 simulations that are variants of that quirky thing that we saw, to fill in some important gaps and make the system better. And really, all of this is about, over time, just reducing the probability of a crash or an injury.
And in the email we got when we were accepted into the beta program, aside from the warnings of how to behave properly with it, there was a sentence about how to send in responses or send data back to the team. How to provide feedback. Press the video record button on the top bar UI to share your feedback. When pressed, your vehicle's external cameras will share a short VIN-associated autopilot snapshot with the Tesla engineering team to help make improvements to FSD. You will not be able to view the clip. You can email your feedback. In your email, please include date, time, location, and if you took an autopilot snapshot. This helps us investigate issues and better understand your feedback. Now, of course, we don't know exactly what Tesla is doing with that, And Elon and Andrei Karpathy have talked about their technicians on their side, when they want to train for a specific thing, will send queries out to the whole fleet, FSD Beta users and others, and try to find images or situations similar and train on those instances. I think what reporting different instances does is says, hey, here's one of those instances, maybe it'll fit into one of your categories. Or when you go back and train on a different feature, maybe use that instead. Or rather, maybe their query to the fleet doesn't need to be as big because they have all this data sent in from beta testers who have seen failures. So are we training the system? Maybe not in the way we think, but we're probably helping from a labeling standpoint as far as things that should be looked at. I can tell you a couple things I reported on 10.6 or somewhere around there did get fixed, and so it could be coincidence, or it could be that the reports I sent in actually helped on those specific roads in those situations. So again, it's a matter of being willing to train it, knowing when to turn it off and drive yourself, and just kind of watching the progression and see if it's actually getting better over time. I'm pretty sure I haven't got an update in over a month, and that's okay. I know they're a few generations ahead of me with 10.10, and I'm hoping I get that soon. Probably right after I release this or finish editing is when they'll drop that to my car. There's also been a lot of talk lately about recalls, and a lot of the recalls Tesla has to do are just software updates, so they can just put those out there. One of them is rolling through stops, and that was programmed in to make the software more human. But we're at a stoplight here and still recording out of the front. You'll see we came to a complete stop and are slowly deciding to go. What is far more likely, in my experience, is that an intersection like this will not have a stop sign and Beta just sits there for a while. And that is super frustrating if you're in a neighborhood with your neighbors behind you and your car just stops when it doesn't need to. There's no stop sign, just an intersection that's obviously clear. Now, in those cases, again, for courtesy's sake, I will hit the accelerator or, take over control, just because obviously I want to live in a neighborhood of friendly people. And here we're clear. There's a fast-moving road. Again, we're past the stop sign. Could have easily gone, and the car is more cautious. So I think when you hear rolling stops or, the headlines of it blows through stop signs or rolls through stop signs, the assumption is it's not seeing the stop sign, when really it's far more cautious than almost any human would be in most scenarios. Again, to a lot of people's point where, they decide after they use it that it's unusable or too annoying. And everybody's going to have their threshold for that. But I am still enjoying it. Actually, I didn't use it for a couple days, and I was kind of missing it. So it definitely has its place. Like I said earlier, I think it overall makes me a safer driver. We'll see how this works out in practice, but we've got a huge road trip from Minnesota down to Florida in the next few weeks, and obviously the way back too. I'm going to try to see how much of that I can do in beta. Now, hopefully I have 10.10 by then, and I will be able to be on the latest version. But it would be fantastic if we can do most or all of that drive on beta, between that and navigate on autopilot. So looking forward to that trip and the video series that will come out of that. So I hope you guys will enjoy that too. Thanks for coming on that little drive with me today. If you enjoyed that, please like, share, subscribe, all that stuff. If you didn't, or if you have other questions, let me know down below in the comments, and I'll try to answer them as best I can. But thanks again, have a great day, and I'll catch you in the next one.